Mohammed Atbuosh is going to talk about the use of Abb in the South Arabian magical formula. Hi, Mohammed. Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Thank you. So, hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be with you today in the seminar, although far away online, to presenting my paper. Actually, first time in an international event. In this paper, I will be revising a common magical formula known in the ancient South Arabian inscriptions as Wad Ab, and it's usually translated as Wad is father. It appears in several variations, sometimes Wad Ab or Ab Wad, sometimes Waddum Abbum or Abbum Waddum. But the interpretation is always the same. Wad being the national god of Marine Kingdom, and which actually we know him from the Quran. We know that early Muslims were aware of this ancient deity, and the word Ab simply meaning father. Here are some examples of this formula, which appears usually in the amulets and in the buildings. Here are some examples from the buildings from Yemen. Not only limited to South Arabian inscriptions, but also few North Arabian shows this protection formula. The interpretation was first proposed by the French scholar Arthur in 1891, followed later by David Moller, and gained universal acceptance among scholars. In the early 20s, Nelson drew a parallel between the association of the deity Wad with the title Ab, father on one hand, and on the other hand, the deity Am, the national god of Qataban kingdom, whose name is literally means paternal uncle, Am. Nelson understood this phenomenon of calling deities father and uncle, Ab and Am, by characterizing the deity as a tribal and national ancestor of the community. If we agreed now with Nelson, we should expect to find the Ma'inians calling themselves children of father, Wild Ab, by analogy with children of uncle, Wild Am. But we don't have evidence for this, except for the formula itself. Additionally, we encounter several South Arabian theophoric names, which consist of Ab, as we see here. For example, Wad Ab, Ab Astar, Ab Am. These names, I think, are less likely to mean father of the deity, because we know that South Arabians consider themselves as the children of the deity, not his father. And the term Ab, at least in these names, I think it should mean something else. So we are dealing with an interpretation that was proposed more than a century ago, untouched, unquestioned, and with no satisfactory explanation. Some scholars, precisely Han Hiyajna, in 2019, he argued that some Quranic words, if interpreted in the light of the South Arabian inscriptions, are seen to have a meaning that might better clarify the context. The present paper will show that the opposite might be possible as well. It will offer an alternative interpretation for the term Ab in the formula Wad Ab, based on the Semitic root Ab, which appears in the Quranic term Abba, meaning grass or fodder, as we see in this Quranic verse, وفاكهة وأبا. The meaning of Abba appears to be very problematic in the Quran, and Muslims were debating it since very early times. For example, there's a tradition attributed to Abu Bakr that he was once asked about the meaning of Abba, and he replied in very dramatic, disapproval manner. He said, "Which land could carry me and which sky could shade me if I said something in the book of Allah, which I have no idea?" Also, Umar was refraining himself from at-takalluf with asking about the meaning of Abba. However, it has been established that the wafakihatan wa'abba means and translated to English as and fruits and fodder. And this can be supported by the Semitic comparison, as we see here. In Akkadian, we have Ababu, Ugaritic, Ib, Biblical Hebrew, Amharic, Classical Arabic, and which is most important here, the Yemeni Arabic word. We have Abib and Ab, which is not documented in any published Western dictionary of the Yemeni dialects. As for Yemeni Arabic, we can consider the word Abib, followed Dr. Ali al-Khulaqi in his dictionary of Yafi'i Arabic. It's a dialect used in southern part of Yemen. He explained the word Abib as a small piece of agricultural terrace being at the edge of the land. Al-Khulaqi made here a wrong assumption. He thinks that Abib is shifted from Ghabib as a distinctive feature of Yafi'i Arabic, but the Semitic comparison that we saw shows that the original root of the word is with A. It's Abib, it's not Gha. Unfortunately, there's no explicit attestation for Ab in the ancient South Arabian corpora with the meaning of fruit or freshness or alike. But there is in the military museum in Sana'a some squared cella with a plain framework of a human figure. On his hands, he's holding two unidentified objects with some letters around him. There's no interpretation has been proposed for these letters, and they are possibly seen by Dasi website as a proper names, maybe Ubayb, Ainab, maybe Dasi think that these are Mary name, proper name. But the roots were more or less identified. We know that it's Ab, father and sister, and Ainab, vineyard or grapes. Now, if we went back to consult the Islamic sources, we'll find a Samarkandi who lived during the 10th century draws our attention to a certain meaning of the Quranic word Abba, which can we use here. He says Abba means grapes or vineyard. Taking this into account with the Semitic meaning of Ab, the two lines in Ab Ainab here could be reinterpreted as a fruitful grapes, and therefore the object which the man, which the human figure is holding, it might be a sort of pickaxe. If this interpretation is accepted, we might be able now to understand the term Ab in our formula as fruitfully or flowering or prosperity as a concept synonym to Islamic term barakah, to bless. Thus, the ancient South Arabian formula Wad Ab can finally be translated as Wad blessing. A Semitic parallel of this blessing formula can be found in Amharic language, for example, where the root Ab appears in the congratulation formula to the bride. They say Ababwel, which means pleasant, which we can compare with, for example, Latin, Vivit et Floret, or German Bluen, and even in Amharic itself, according to my Ethiopian informant, they say Abu, with the meaning of luck. And now I will play the record by my informant and how he pronounced this word.
Abo, Abo, Abo.
This interpretation also can explain the meaning of these theophoric names. Wad Ab, it could be understood as Wad blessing, Ab After, blessing of After, Ab Am, blessing of Am. I think that the association of the deity Wad with the concept of blessing may be connected to rain, because in modern Hadrami Arabic, we use the word Rahma, which in classical Arabic it means mercy, but in Hadrami Arabic it means rain. According to inscriptions, Wad had a sacred river, which bears his name, Hirran, torrent of Wad. His association with rain can also be supported by some Awsanite inscription, where we have the line, Waddum the Sablan. Sablan here could be interpreted as rain, Wad of the rain, especially if compared with Mihri, Sebul, or Sobel, which means to pour down rain, or also Sibel, heavy rain. Wad also appeared in a unique incantation text published by Professor Peter Stein, and I would like to hear your comment on this, where the incantation was concluded with the phrase Waddum Shakbum. Wad is hope, which Professor Stein identifies as a parallel of the common apotropic formula Waddum Abbum that we are dealing with now. Shakwam as a hope and Abbum as bless seems to fit the context perfectly. Now, if we go to the modern era, where I have some beautiful pictures to share with you, we know that the custom of engraving similar protection formulas on buildings, that it might have survived in Yemen through engraving Islamic blazing formulas like MashaAllah or Tabarakallah, or even La Hawla wa la Quwwata illa billah. There is no strength nor power but by means of God. The third phrase, La Hawla, shares an etymological relation with another variation of our formula, that is Hal'ab. Hal'ab appears in some inscription, which Dr. Maraktan translated as by the might of Father. Instead, I would suggest to translate it as Hawl blazing, Hal'ab, Hawl being the Hadrami ancient deity. And to support this, I will share an interesting possible survival of the deity Hawl in Hadrami folk songs in the modern era. Riyad Bakr Moom is a local Hadrami himself, a trained scholar and currently holding the position of director of Guam. He reported several chants addressing some initiative by the name Hawl related to the rain, like Hawl ya Hawl or Wa Hawla or Wa Hawl. And now I will play one of these chants in a folk song in Yemen. It's a short clip. Yadba Kamum argues that Hawl is still in use in modern Hadrami Arabic, which with several meanings, most of which are related to idea of changing or transition and closely related to the rain and rain-fed agriculture. The deity Wad was manifested as a serpent or snake in the ancient artifacts, like the bronze snake that we see now in this photo, which was engraved with the word Waddum. Wad, here you can see it in the middle. In modern Yemen, it's common to include engraving of a serpent on the buildings for protection, as illustrated in many published photographs. Some are shown here. This, I think, may indicate the continuity of the serpent's apotropic role in the collective memory in Yemen. Finally, I would say that the confusion surrounding the interpretation of the Qur'anic Abb brings to mind another tradition when the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sought clarification on the meaning of a well-known South Arabian term like harg. Once Muhammad said, there will be much harg in the future. The companions asked him, "Oh Prophet, what is harg?" To which he replied, killing, killing. The term harg is now known to us, thanks to the ancient inscriptions, as kill, slaughter, massacre. The parallel which can be drawn between ab and harg is considering them both South Arabian terms and recognized by early Muslims, while their meanings were well preserved in ancient inscriptions. Now, I should admit that this interpretation does not go with difficulties, which I discussed in details in my paper, but I think that all these survivals are extremely useful in studying the ancient inscriptions. Thank you.
Yeah, this one actually. This one's. You'll talk into that.
And I need to see you there. Oh, hello. You see me?
Hello, yes, I see you.
I see you here on screen. Yes, very nice to see you here. Unfortunately, not in person, but online. Yes, I enjoyed very much your presentation. It was very well done, and yeah, I liked it a lot. And I think I would say, from my point of view, this your arguments in favor of a blessing context of this up in this particular formula, I think it's quite convincing. I always had my problems with this idea that this particular god should be named a father of whomever, and why only this god and no other deity from South Arabia. I think this new approach makes it much more plausible. The other thing I would say, on the other hand, is you also included all these theophoric names in your argumentation, so these up, after, and so on. And I would be a bit careful with that, because these names or these onomastic patterns, they are of course common in all Semitic cultures, and we have these names like Avraham also in Hebrew, Ibrahim in Arabic, and of course it's not the same etymology or not the same form in Arabic anymore, but these names, Avraham, Avshalom, and all these names, and these are commonly and quite convincingly coined as containing some this word af or ab, father, as the uncle, and so on, as you said it at the beginning of your talk. And I think it's not necessary at all to include your blessing argumentation into these names as well. This would open a huge, what to say, a huge box of the debate, of discussion on the entire ancient Semitic onomastics, and this is not necessary at all to explain this particular formula. Was, from my perspective, very convincing what you have done there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.